Renter Retirement Community. This is Zach Lemaster here, joined again with the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Prefontaine, with the Smart Real Estate Coach, here to talk about what's happening for this next year and all sorts of things creative finance. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing awesome, buddy. Good to hang out with you again. We gotta do this more often.
Yeah, it's always a big hit when we have you on because you guys are doing some cool stuff in real estate, some stuff that I learned from you. Every time we talk, I tend to apply to my own investing. And just love the idea. So for anyone that doesn't know about you, Chris, or hasn't listened to the previous episodes, which we will put in the show notes below, I mean, you're out there helping people do some big things in real estate, replace their W-2 income very quickly, sometimes within a year, being an active investor using creative financing. But can you tell us, just for anyone that's unaware, what is creative financing and who are you?
Sure. So I'll go with the creative financing first, and then I'll fill in the blanks. Creative financing, I'll be very basic, and Zach, you and I can dive in deeper. Creative financing for us is buying things without using banks, without using your credit, without pledging your credit, without using your own cash. Real simple. When I came out of the crash, I had none of that, frankly. And so we built a model that would solve that. Number one. Number two, thrive in any market. And we'll dive into how important it is right now. I've been at this 31 years as far as me, and took my lumps, the biggest one being in 08. And again, that's what got us here. You couldn't have convinced me of that in 08, but it's what got us here. And I'm super glad we did that and went through that pain so you don't have to.
Well, we'd rather learn from your mistakes, Chris, than make our own.
Yep.
So we appreciate you sharing that knowledge and passing it forward. And the way that I look at creative financing is it's a tool in the toolbox. Some people, this is their sole strategy they focus on, and they're super hyper focused to really scale their portfolio quickly, because when it all boils down to it, we are all limited by our capital. You can go out and put as many down payments as you have capital for, but then you're limited, right? You're done. What else do you do besides potentially bring in private investors or save up the money for your next down payment? Creative financing is a great way, to your point, where you can acquire and scale your portfolio without having to involve banks. Banks are a pain in the ass to deal with. It's a bane of my existence, but it's also allows you to be creative to acquire more real estate quicker, more creatively, and really make a win-win situation for the seller and yourself, and obtain higher returns. The name of the game here is scalability. So, and to be specific, I mean, we'll put the show notes to the previous shows we've had in the link below, but I mean, these really through three methods I think that you guys use, which is seller finance, where the seller is actually financing the property for you. Those are usually free and clear properties. Subject to, where you're actually buying a property and owning it, getting all the tax advantages. You are entitled owning it, but you're taking over the previous mortgage the seller has. And then lease option, where you're leasing the property with the option to buy it in the future. So those are kind of the main strategies you guys focus on. Chris, let's talk a little bit more about really the bulk of what we want to present today, which is this excellent workshop. I know you're a busy guy out there in the weeds actually doing deals. And so while you have a great team surrounding you, we want to hear from you specifically. You are going to be teaching this workshop. And this is really, I think, an awesome thing that you're offering for free to the renter retirement community for anyone that really wants to learn about creative financing. You guys are going to go through live deals, Q&A, and this is something that you don't always do, right? So tell us a little bit more about this workshop that you have coming up in just a few weeks.
Yeah, I don't do them often, and this year end's coming up, 23 is coming up, and I think it's super important to just scream from the rooftops how the market's changing, because the media's screaming, and they're screaming in the wrong direction. I just want people to be empowered and have hope and to get their fingers on this material. What we're doing is literally peeling back the curtain and saying, okay, what is creative financing? We just gave you a taste, Zach and I, but not only that, but where do we find these sellers? Where do we find the buyers? And why do they want to do this? Because the biggest question people say is, how do you convince them? And why would a buyer do that? We're going to show you all that. And then we're going to start peeling back each one of the ways that we buy that Zach just exposed and alluded to. And I'm going to tell you something. If you're not revved up after that, I'd be shocked. And the reason is rates are going up, whatever they are now, in the sixes. And we're buying properties recent as this week. We got an underlying loan on a sub-2 deal. So just for the audience to know, we don't sign personally on it. You will never sign personally on it. And it's 2.25%, Zach. Crazy. And so you can go out and accumulate all these properties during this time frame and literally set up like a decade worth of wealth the way we get paid on these. Because these aren't, as you know, Zach, one payday deals. We're going to show you in the workshop what 3 paydays means that we trademark and how lucrative it is. It's crazy lucrative. I just got tired coming out of the crash and all these years in real estate as good as it was to me, I have no like qualms about my lifestyle. I'm super happy with it. But getting paid 3 times took me off the proverbial treadmill and let me create now money. Awesome. Continuation of money. Great. But long-term wealth at the same time. And that's a unique model.
Now money, consistent money over time, and forever money, right? I mean, and that's,
Yep.
I just love that about your guys' model. You're really structuring it creatively. And yeah, what do you do in an environment where rates are 7 or 8%? Will you go and buy properties and take over loans of people that have 2.25%? That's outstanding. I love that.
That's awesome. And listen,
because that's all.
I feel badly for the buyers. We had someone in our office that I was telling you off air, and he was saying, Chris, nobody, he's been at this as long as me, is doing what you guys are doing. And that's why there's so much interest now. And sadly, we are at like a 50-year average interest rate in the nation is 7.7. We're not even there yet. We're almost there, but we're not there yet. And there's a major affordability issue already. So it's so right to do what we're doing right now.
You're making your own terms. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. A lot of people, I think, are interested by this because maybe they've heard about this strategy, or maybe they haven't at all. And they've heard about wholesaling and flipping. But creative finance, just to be very clear, is a way that you are actually buying real estate with this, either the seller finance it, or you're taking over a loan for someone. Again, not signing, not taking on the risk and the debt of that loan. You are taking on the responsibility to pay that loan, but you're actually owning the asset. And this is huge right now because you are going on title with 2 of the 3 strategies we mentioned previously. You're going on title. You get the tax benefits, especially if you're a real estate professional trying to do things like accelerated depreciation. You're on title. You can do that, and you're not having to come to the table with 20 or 30%. With today's financing rates and paying 7%. Now, just to be abundantly clear, this is an active way for people to acquire real estate. This is not passive. You can set it up to be passive over time, but you need to learn this strategy. It's high-level stuff. You need to learn the ins and outs of how to communicate with buyers and sellers. You need to learn the intricacies of when to apply these strategies because not every situation is the same. For example, if someone's going into foreclosure and they are behind on their mortgage, and obviously there's an existing mortgage, that's a perfect subject to type of deal. Whereas a seller that has a property free and clear and they're not in financial pain, they don't have to sell that property, but you're helping them accomplish their goals. Maybe they don't have a huge tax strategy, they're done dealing with it. They'd rather receive payments over time. That's a perfect seller finance deal. And most savvy investors, I think maybe Chris, you can agree on this, or I'd like to hear your opinion, but most investors that have like larger portfolios, they're familiar with this type of stuff. It's nothing new. It's just creating the right systems and approach. But sometimes individual owners, it takes some education, right? So this is why this workshop that's coming up is so crucial. And you can go to the link, by the way, at smartrealestatecoach.com/RTR23. And that will allow you to have free access to this 2 to 3 hour workshop on what is the date for it, Chris?
It's going to be November 30th, and that's 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll hang out for a couple hours, and if you have questions live, because that usually happens when we do live case studies, I'm going to hang out. And just to your point, Zach, super spot on with this stuff's been around, so people know about it. And to give you some context to that, 1600s, okay, that's a long time ago. If you pick up the story about the Vanderbilts that Anderson Cooper recently wrote about, it's his family. He talks about the mansions here in Newport, is why I picked up the book. But he also talks about his family, decades ago, buying property pre-bank times in New York City on owner financing and master lease purchase, he called it. Imagine that. So this is not new. We just now take people by the hands and show them how to access that. And the reason I think it's so cool for the rent retirement community is picture getting enough income. Enough is different for everyone, but enough income in your payday 1s and 2s for cash now and monthly cash, and then taking your payday 3s and parlaying them into passive stuff with rent retirement. Like, it's such a cool marriage. That's why I want to just get this in everybody's hands in your community.
Then again, yeah, I love that, Chris. The name of the game is all about scalability. You need to create scalable portfolios to receive consistent residual income and to receive the amount of substantial passive income that you need to build out a retirement picture. And that just comes with the right strategy. I think this is I'd like to point out one more thing that we're not at this point quite yet, but we've seen it in the past in some uncertain financial times. We've seen it during COVID. It is quite possible for banks to stop lending.
Oh yeah.
and banks to shut down, right? Like there was even a point I remember just 2 years ago, or I guess now it's technically longer, when COVID first hit, we were under contract with multiple commercial deals that we were buying, and lending came to a screeching halt. They just stopped. They just stopped lending. Yeah.
Yeah, they stopped jumbos. Like these people, like what? What happened?
And we were approved. We got a commitment letter from the bank, and they just came back like a week before closing, or it was about 10 days, and said, "Sorry, we're not funding this anymore." And it's like, what? My earnest money was gone. But thankfully, in one of those scenarios, we were able to arrange a seller type of finance deal and actually still proceed with closing it. But if we hadn't known about that, or you don't know about these strategies, I mean, these are very applicable things to where we're at right now, and these are dramatic. This can be dramatically impactful to help you scale your portfolio. You just have to be an educated and savvy investor and know these things. But what I want to talk about is what is the future really looking like? You're trying to prep us here for 2023, how to be the most successful investors we can, Chris. But let's talk about what the next year has entailed for us.
Well, look, I love when radio shows or the media talk about what's going to happen, right? Because billionaires don't know. So certainly Zach and I don't know. But what I will say is my opinion is it's not changing fast in the opposite direction. Like rate's not going to drop to 3% tomorrow again, sadly for a lot of buyers, right? And sellers. So if it just maintained that or creeped up next year, this climate of all the buyers and sellers needing a new answer, a new pivot, a new guide, a new solution, there's more business than your community, our community, or frankly, any community we deal with could even handle. There's that many people on the sidelines now. And compile that on top of all the people from COVID before the rates went up that said, I know what to heck with my W-2. I'm going to go start my own business. And they go to start their own business and then go buy a home for their family. And the bank goes, nope, we need 2 years of seasoning. So now they need our option of how to get into a home. There's just so much demand. It's like a perfect storm right now. So 23, to answer your question, I think if people, the reason I wanted to do this November 30th is to give people the whole month of December to say, all right, I can get behind this. I can get passionate about helping people and parlaying wealth at the same time, and then sprint for 9 months, maybe 12 months tops. And I'm not making it sound like a cakewalk, but if you're committed and serious and you want to get this done, you will create that decade of income I talked about, because these payday 1, 2s, and 3s, they go out that long. You'll be sitting back saying, okay, I can sit back a little bit more passive, like you said, or I can keep building until things change. Amazing opportunity.
Let's just make sure everyone caught what you said. Within 9 months, if you stay dedicated, and I know this to be true because I've seen it, but if you stay dedicated for 9 months and really put in the hard work, you can create a decade worth of income by effectively implementing some of these strategies. Was that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I'll give you a shout out. Someone in your community, I might have talked to you just about 10 days ago when I was going up to Vermont, joined us, and I've never seen someone light it up like they're lighting it up. And so I will tell you that she's probably on the verge of 3 or 4 deals, all 6-figure deals. It's been 10 days. Now, please don't misunderstand. That's not the norm. That's a powerhouse that's going on right there. But the norm is I need 9 to 12 months with you with just blinders on, and you'll have a great experience.
Yeah. And so really what this workshop is about creative financing, but more importantly, it's about how to be the most strategic and successful investor into this next year that you can be, because this is crucial times when there's a lot of opportunity created right now. And if you're focused on just one investment strategy or one method, or solely reliant on banks or building up down payments for that next property, you're limited, right? And I hate when people say, I don't know, these interest rates are too high, or like, I'm just going to sit back. I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, this is the time you need to not sit back, right? This is the time you need to go out and do stuff. I understand the traditional bank method is not the most attractive right now, but there's many other methods that probably are more applicable right now. And this is definitely something you need to look at. So
yes, Zach, you talked about a pivot that you guys did during COVID. So you basically did what? You had a transaction engineer hat on, and you said, let me think of a different way to engineer this deal. And you pivoted because you know how. That's what I want everybody to be confident in. Going into 23, going, give me a deal. Give me a seller to talk to, and I know how to pivot, or I know who to call to pivot, which would be us and you.
Yep, you just got to learn it. You got to make that decision to actually take action and go out there and find those deals. But this type of thing is one deal can be life-changing. Just, I mean, for audience, I mean, come to the workshop, right? If you have questions about creative financing, about really how to be a strategic investor, invest in properties without using your own capital or banks or credit or even other people's capital and, as down payments. I mean, come and learn the stuff. Like, spend 2 hours of your life, and I guarantee you're going to walk away with a few golden nuggets. One of those of which could make you extremely wealthy. I mean, that's really what it boils down to in education, especially in real estate. You learn a few different things from a few different people. You find one that really resonates with you. You apply it, and then you apply it again and again and again. And you're financially independent, and you've built wealth for your family for a long time. That's exactly what we've done. But you got to learn it and you got to do it. So, I mean, that's why I think this workshop can be so powerful. And of course, Chris doesn't always spend the time to do this here, but I think this is something that'll be extremely valuable. But let's talk about, just for anyone, we talk about these 3 paydays, just giving a little highlight of like, what does that actually mean for someone that's trying to wrap their head around this, of how you create now and forever money using a creative finance deal like a seller finance or sub 2.
Sure. So we are exiting all our deals with the method of rent to own primarily because of the demand out there right now. But it's always been there since I've been doing real estate. But right now it's high. And that means you have a buyer, a true buyer, who today cannot get financing. It could be because they just started their own business. It could be because the credit got dinged up for a life event. That's
you mean a buyer from you, like a home buyer, right? Like, typically, this is not the seller of the house. This is someone that you found that's going to, that wants to buy the house and can't, but is well qualified. Yeah. Can't
qualify with a bank yet. And I went that route first, Zach, on purpose instead of the seller, which I usually do, because that buyer was thinking they could buy a house today. And then the bank shut them down, or they found out they can't get a loan right now, or they can't afford it right now because of what's going on. So they put down a non-refundable down payment. For us, that averages around 28, 30 grand. That's payday 1. That goes right in your pocket. Payday 2 is every month I'm paying on that home. It could be on a financing. It could be that sub 2 deal that Zach and I referred to. It could be a lease purchase. It doesn't matter. I have a payment I have to make every month on that home, but I'm getting that plus X from my tenant buyer as they're getting qualified for their mortgage. And that X, that delta, that spread for us ranges around $308 per month per house. And then the payday 3 is real cool. It's throughout the whole term of this process that it takes them to get qualified for a loan. We're getting all of the principal pay down on that underlying debt and anything we mark the property up. So on average, that for us is around $75,000 to $78,000. We're actually on the low end of that. Our students range from like $45,000 to $250,000 per deal, all 3 paydays. That's pretty cool.
Let me just say that back to you in a numeric example and tell me if I missed anything, Chris, because sometimes this takes a few times to hear. So basically, what you have a seller that wants to sell their house, they can't sell it on the market, whatever. You have it really doesn't matter if it's seller finance or sub 2. You agree to say they're selling their house for $100,000. You contracted at $100,000. They have a mortgage payment for $300. You know that you can rent that house out for $600. So you contract their house at $100,000. You put maybe $1,000 down or whatever. Possibly
$10 is a standard deal, but go ahead.
Yeah. Generally giving them their price. Maybe they don't need a down payment, in that case. I mean, a lot of cases, the goal is to come with less money, as little down as possible, which happens all the time. And so you contract that house, or you actually buy that house. You don't contract it. You buy that house on paper, right? You're on title. And then with what you're saying is you find someone that would be a renter, they're buying the house from you over time.
They just can't now. Yeah.
So they can't qualify right now. So maybe they're buying it in, say, three years from you. You contracted at 100, you sell it to them for, say, 120.
Yep.
So that's the $20,000 spread that you've created. Plus, remember, every mortgage payment over those 3 years that your buyer's making is paying down the principal of that existing loan. And so you're building this equity spread in there. But then also the difference in rents is what you're receiving over time. So you're paying the initial loan $300, you're renting it out for $600, and that person is putting a down payment down on the house, $20,000, whatever the case is, because they're well qualified, they have capital. Right. Maybe they can't qualify for a loan because they're an entrepreneur and they don't have 2 years of tax returns.
Right.
And so that's also actually I did that in reverse order, but that's the first page.
Perfect. Yeah. Right? Perfect.
So that's just kind of it's all about, again, being creative, and these are the types of things that are going to allow people to really scale and be extremely successful over this next year. I love talking about this. Creative financing is not our main strategy to acquire properties, just for us personally, but this is a strategy that is essential to know about because it is applicable And if you're unaware of it, you may be missing potential deals. But there are some people that there is this soul strategy, and they create this awesome business being hyper focused on the strategy and going out and finding these sellers and following the process. And then obviously, Chris, you're in the weeds with people if they come through your program, actually helping them negotiate and find and acquire deals, right?
Yeah, I was actually helping someone from your community this morning, and I had to go to meetings like pastor to one of our superstars in our community. They're working on that deal all day today. So that's the kind of support we give. And frankly, I tell people that, Zach, and they just don't get it, because today the gentleman was in my office who said, no one does this. So as much as I say it to people, they go, I don't know. And then they get in the community, they go, oh my gosh, this is amazing, because we're just locking arms and doing deals. That's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's so important. This stuff is kind of high level, and it's hard to wrap your head around, but it's very interesting. And man, the sky's the limit, right? With this stuff versus the traditional down payment of using banks. That is a limiting factor. So anyways, if you're interested to find more about creative finance, but really mainly focusing on this workshop that Chris is going to be going into grave detail with, all sorts of stuff, creative financing, answering live questions, as well as going through case studies that help solidify this stuff in your mind, go to smartrealestatecoach.com/RTR23 as Chris is prepping us to be the most successful and savvy investor that we can in 2023. So Chris, any parting words on the workshop or anything else that people should know?
Just one thought mentally, that we all have been at a point where we go, oh, I wish I did that. So-and-so is so lucky. I want everybody at the end of 23 to go, Chris and Zach told me this a year ago and I crushed it. I'm so glad I did. That is just the mindset.
Stay hyper-focused for 9 months to create a decade worth of income. I love it so much. Chris, thanks for having us. We look forward to joining you at the workshop and always providing value. Thank you so much.